Hi, everybody. Happy Monday. Today, let me share this a couple places. I wanted to, I'm running this mindset program coming up here, and it occurs to me, it's a little abstract when we talk about mindset coaching and how that has to do with weight loss. So I wanted to come in here for a second and just talk about how we kind of screw up our mindsets around fat loss and how that holds us back a little bit. So if you have previously done weight loss challenges or some sort of fat loss challenges, or have tried to lose weight but been somewhat unsuccessful before, then this is going to be a video that you'll want to watch. And if you don't already know me, my name's Jure Pearson, and I am a life strategist and mindset and weight loss coach. So I'm just going to jump right in here. So weight loss, I found one thing over the last 5 years of coaching. Weight loss is a lot more dependent on somebody's mindset than it is their knowledge about nutrition and fitness. So I can teach somebody the ins and outs of their nutrition all day long, but if it feels really yucky to them to do these things, then they're not going to stick with it and they're not going to be successful. So that's just a really simple overview of how mindset affects weight loss. But what happens is, if we can make weight loss somewhat a positive experience, which is almost, most people, this is a completely foreign concept, but if you can make it somewhat, even fun in some ways, then it becomes a whole different animal. So when we talk about mindset, a lot of times we think our childhood, right? Like, what are our preconceived ideas? Hey, say hi if you pop on. So if we, like for me, childhood, I know that my childhood was, I had kind of a rough childhood home life. So going to my grandma's house, my grandma she loved with food, and she was an amazing cook, and she spent the majority of her time in the kitchen, and she spoiled us. I mean, when I started working mindset on my own nutrition, one of the big sort of triggers that a memory that I had was my grandma when I was probably 14 years old or so. I remember she had baked this apple pie, and she was known for being just amazing at apple pie, right? And she said it was going to go bad. So that morning she was like, Dre, this is going to go bad. Nobody's going to come out and eat this in the next day or so. So just eat as much of this cake today, or, pie today, as you want to, and whatever. And I remember going up to her, sitting at her island, and getting into this apple pie while she was cooking and doing some other stuff. And it wasn't just the pie, like it was this whole memory of mine of sitting there and eating this apple pie, out of the pie plate with my grandma, and being like, so cool that she let me do that, and that we're having this moment. And I'm like, because I could tell that she felt good because I was like, making all my yummy noises and everything. And so, those instances, yes, they frame our mindset. When we have a really great memory around food, or we were really poor when I was a kid, and so going to my grandma's house was kind of like a big treat, because she, there were no locks on those cupboards, and they were stocked good. You could go into a refrigerator and know you were going to be fed well and everything. And so it became almost like a safety comfort thing food did for me, which later on in life became how I want to love up on my family with food and everything else. And so, but what I'm talking about is also how has our mindset really changed from the weight loss struggles that we've had in our later on years. So I have dozens and dozens of friends who do challenges, like weight loss challenges, and every time we kind of get off track, or put those 10 pounds, 20 pounds back on, we join another challenge and do and I call them deadline diets. So a challenge that gives you 8 weeks or whatever to drop as much weight as you can, and you get really focused into it. And there's pluses and minuses to these programs. And so one of the positives is you are very supported, and it becomes something that a big group of people are doing together. And so that's really fantastic. But the downside to it is we teach ourselves a lot about deprivation when we do these challenges. So we tell ourselves we can't have this, we can't have that. This is going to make us fat. This is going to, if we just do whatever, if we just eat whatever, it's bad, right? Food is bad. Food becomes bad. And it's not. And so we start getting into sort of a negative pattern with the way that we view ourselves and our food when we do these challenges. So the reason that I switched, closed down my studio and switched the way I coach a lot was because I saw us beat ourselves up. Hey, you! We beat ourselves up over, if we don't hit our goal in those 8 weeks, we beat ourselves up. If we eat the wrong thing, we beat ourselves up. If we see ourselves, we're kind of, we get into this I'm not good enough mindset, where it's always something better. We always have to do something better. We always have to be better. And with weight loss, with women, this is so common. We do this all the time, and we sort of start telling ourselves and selling ourselves this story about when we get to a certain point, we're going to be enough. When we reach our goal, it's going to be right. If we, and so we give ourselves a lot of these number goals. I want to be at this weight. I want to be, I want it to be in this amount of time. And when I get there, I'm going to feel great about it. And we find that that's not the case, because it's never really enough. When I got down to a size 0, size 02, that was like my magic. Everything was going to be great. And then I realized that I was still picking myself apart. I was still like noticing every little, roll that I had and everything else. I still picked myself apart because I hadn't taught myself about the self-love stuff that, that you have to feel, no matter where you're at in your journey. So going off on a little tangent here. So, the expectations that we set for ourselves are generally, pounds. So we set like a goal of a pound or whatever, and we have to really switch that into a health mindset and the positives of all of it. So instead of saying I need to lose weight, we want to feel better. Everything we do, and I talk about this in mindset coaching all the time, but everything that we do has, every action that we take has to do with a underlying thought or emotion. So if something feels really shitty, we're not going to continue to do that. And this is what a lot of these challenges do. That's why a lot of times we do really well for like 4 weeks. And then we completely fall off the wagon. Because, and this is another thing that we do, when you want to lose weight, we do one of two things. A lot of us women do. We either seclude ourselves, so we kind of hide ourselves away, because it's a lot easier than having to come up against, when everybody's eating everything or whatever else. We kind of shut ourselves away and we do our own thing, and we don't really bring in the support and that sort of stuff. So that's what one type of person does. And another type of person hires a coach or goes to a gym, does a challenge, does something like that. And those people are more, following a leader. So following a coach or whoever. And so we also have to balance out that role with for ourselves. And so, because a lot of times when you're just following what someone else tells you to do, that's not always going to feel good either. And that's not enough of a why to keep us on track as well either. And so a lot of times you'll be working with a coach, or you'll be doing some sort of a group challenge, and then you get to a point where it just is not filling you up with anything anymore. And that's when you're going to go eat a whole chocolate cake, because it's not worth it. Why am I doing this all the time? And then of course you might feel guilty afterwards, beat yourself up over, how you weren't perfect and you should have done something differently. Hey, Amanda. And then, so we have to look at our, our body satisfaction has to be different than a number on a scale, because that's completely abstract. We don't know how we're going to feel internally when we hit 25% body fat, right? And it's going to be however you feel right now is how you're going to feel when you're at that weight. You just might feel a little bit proud of yourself for accomplishing that or whatever else. And so when you start trying to make it feel better as you're doing the work, so so we have to look at, things that feel good is when, like, I had a client go off diabetes medication, blood pressure. I've had clients who have massively dropped their blood pressure. I had a client who had to lose visceral fat before she could have babies and ended up having twins. Those are the things, those are the real things that are going to make you successful. When you have a health goal, like, I want to live until I'm 110 years old, and that's no joke. That's one of my reasons for every day getting up and doing what I do, is because I'm like, I want to live as long as I possibly can. And every single day that I can add on to that is like, good. But it took me a long time to start thinking 80 years down the road, right? That wasn't something that wasn't why I originally wanted to lose my 85 pounds, right? So, so when you we kind of have to, like, take the power back from being taught all of these things in these challenges and everything else about deprivation. You have to learn to love the foods that love you. So that means, like, when you are eating something healthy, we're so conditioned into the media idea of what tastes good. So, like, we see a burger, grilling up and it looks really good. And we're so conditioned into it has to be unhealthy for it to taste good. I catch my kids in this probably 3 times a day, where I hear them say something like, oh gosh, and it's a reflex. It's not really that they don't like that food. It's just that it's a vegetable. You know what I mean? Or whatever. And adults do this just as much. We are so conditioned into thinking that, it's a treat to have something that's bad for us. And when you start really paying attention to what you're consuming and, what you're getting out of what you're consuming and the harm you're doing from what you're consuming, it becomes a whole nother game. You don't love yourself if you are making yourself ill, right? And so as your love for yourself, as you start seeing that sort of from the outward perspective, and, because we wouldn't, like, our kids, we aren't going to push this stuff on our kids, right? We aren't going to tell them that it's okay for them to do all of these things, these bad habits that we're doing. So we have to think of ourselves from the outside and be able to start restructuring our mindset that way, reframing our role within our own nutrition plans so that it feels good. So, and it's still, I know for a lot of you, it still sounds kind of abstract, but you get to a point where you want to keep yourself healthy and you don't want to hinder your health, and it becomes more of a health thing. Fear is huge with dieting. So this is something that took me, I had to dig pretty deep to see where, because when you talk about fear is an emotion that shows itself in a lot of different ways. And so whether we're, like, looking on the scale, stepping on the scale, how do you feel when you step on the scale? For most people, it doesn't feel really good to step on the scale and get really real with where we're at and all of that stuff. So we tend to fear stepping on the scale. And I've had lots of clients that have to step on the scale backwards, and I write down the number without them looking at it, because otherwise we end up in tears. This is a really big emotion. So, and when you do know that you have that feeling over something, whether it's shopping, if you don't like going to the to the store to go buy a new pair of jeans, and it makes you, like, anxious or whatever, then you've got a lot of negative self-talk that you need to dig into. Those are cues, as well as take pictures. A lot of people don't want anybody taking pictures of them because they feel that they're overweight. Another thing about my grandma wouldn't let people take pictures of her. So, of course, when she passed away, we were, like, in the family, like, fighting over, who gets the photos, the few photos of her that we have, And I don't think, as a mom, I don't think any of us want to ever be at a place where, our kids don't have photos of us, or we're not in any of those memories, because we were standing on the sidelines, or we were the one who always grabbed the camera and was like, here, I'll take all the pictures today, because we know we don't want to be in the photos. That's no way to live. And no matter what size we are, we shouldn't be doing that. Like, we need to love ourselves enough that it's not, we're not like, oh my gosh, we can't let anybody see us like that, So, so, um, as a woman, we've also, like, I can just speak for myself, but we've heard a lot of things, you know. My dad, my biological dad, was somebody who was very particular. He liked small women. He was a single bachelor man. And so I heard him often talk about the size of women. And this was something he and my mom had an issue with before they got divorced as well. And so weight was always a really big thing for him. And I didn't have a super close relationship with him and always wanted to when I was a kid. And so I that was something in my head where I always wanted him to see me in this positive way. And I thought in order to do that was to stay a certain size. And so later on in life, that's another thing that came up, you know, that I had to deal with. Still mindset related, right? So I'm going to be real with you guys, like super honest with you guys for a second. I was always, you know, tried to stay the same size when I was young. I think I got a lot of attention because, you know, and women do a lot of attention. I developed young, you know, I got my boobs when I was in the 6th grade, and, you know, it was always, my physique was always sort of an issue, whether it was my family or whoever. And for about 15 years, from the time I was probably 15 until I was about 30, I had this image of what I needed to look like in my head. And it was, you know, bikini model image. And I was not happy with myself unless I could get to that point. Well, I ended up end of my 30s, mid to late 30s, or I guess mid 30s. I'm aging myself a little bit. Mid 30s, where I started losing all of my weight. So I had been 85 pounds overweight, and I started losing that weight. And really, I just wanted attention. I wanted people to see me for this thin person that I thought I needed to be, and everything else. And when I got there, I realized that my entire image of how I wanted to be had been complete. It wasn't who I wanted to be. It was who I thought everybody else in the world would see a beautiful person as. So I was looking at bikini models, and I was looking at my other fitness coach friends who, you know, didn't have, you know, anything out of place, and everything looked perfect. People who were competing and doing all of this stuff and thinking that's how I wanted to look, right? And then as a mom, as my kids are growing up, I'm seeing that it's, you know, so I'm having conversations with my daughter, for example, when she's 10 years old, and I'm talking to her about self-image, and it occurs to me that what one person thinks is beautiful is totally not what someone else thinks is beautiful. And so I'm telling my 10-year-old, and I hadn't even got this through my head completely yet. And so I'm telling her to make her feel better that it doesn't matter what you know, what this person thinks is beautiful. You know, if you're 10 pounds heavier than they think you should be or whatever, it doesn't matter, because this person sitting on the other side thinks that you're exactly perfect the way that you're supposed to be in this moment, right? And so if we spend all of our time focusing on this person over here who thinks that we need to be a size 0, instead of focusing on these people over here who are like, oh shit, girl, you're good. You know, it's all perception. It is all the way that our brains are wired, and what we tell ourselves, what we have heard over the years and played over and over and over again in our minds. And then the way that we have later on in life, the way we've chosen to deal with that. So we get to a point where we're 80 pounds overweight. We jump into these challenges where it's kill yourself every freaking day, otherwise you'll never get there. And so then it makes it worse, because you're cycling through, I must have done something wrong because this other person who I'm doing this challenge with lost 2 more pounds than I did this week. And so what am I doing wrong? You start really analyzing every little thing that you're doing, everything you're putting in your body and everything else. And it makes it so much worse. Our internal dialogue about the food we eat and our health and everything else becomes one negative thing after another. And I'm not completely dogging on challenges, because I still run challenges. There's still something to be said for having that support for those, those 3 weeks. I'm running a 23-day challenge coming up that has a nutrition component in it. But I believe that our goal should not be weight related. It should not be a number. It should be an improvement. goal. So, and, setting timelines and saying, I need to lose 2.5. Our hormones, everybody's hormones are different from the next person. Everybody's metabolism, one person's going to have more lean muscle mass than someone else, and they're going to just naturally be burning more calories every day. One person's going to get more sleep at night, and so their growth hormone is going to be produced in a more efficient way than somebody who's only able to get 4 or 5 hours of sleep in a night. Everything, one person's results is supposed to be different from someone else's results, but we just get stuck beating ourselves up over the expectations. So don't go out, don't go out and quit all of your challenges in your gyms or, your gym memberships and all of that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that food is a good thing. We are nurturing our body when we eat food, and that's what we're supposed to do. We are not always going to eat 100% clean, I promise. It's almost impossible in this day and age to eat everything clean the way that we're supposed to. But I promise you that our bodies, our digestive systems, our filtration system is meant to filter out some chemicals. If we have too much sugar in a sitting one time, we're not going to gain 5 pounds. That's not the way it works. We have a lot of leniency that people aren't realizing. It's like an all or nothing thing. We have to be 100% perfect or we're doing it all wrong, and then we're beating ourselves up over it. So we can be still hurting our mindsets in present day. It doesn't have to be something that happened to us in childhood. It doesn't have to be that we were, that our parents grew up in the Depression or shortly after the Depression, and that their parents were still, that doesn't have to be our story, but we have to be aware of our story in order to change our patterns. So, all right, on this last little note, if you make eating clean a chore, and this is easy to do. I teach food prep. I teach about, spending a couple hours on Sunday doing your food prep and all that stuff. And you could look at that like that is a chore or whatever. But for me, it's become a routine that I don't mind doing. Like, it's not so bad, and it's worth it to me because then all week is a little bit easier. Not to mention that my health is a little bit better. But in order to, really be successful at weight loss and then maintenance, once we get to the point that we want to be at, it can't feel like a chore all the time. You're going to be exhausted. You're not going to want to follow through and do this again tomorrow. And so you have to learn all of the skills, to do it and take more of a leadership role in your own journey so that it's not someone else telling you what to do all the time, so that you have say over the types of foods that you're eating. So that you're not always looking off someone else's meal plan that you purchased. Trust me, it's a lot more challenging when you're trying to do everything exactly by the book that someone else wrote. You have to be involved in writing your own program for life, because only you have those habits and mindsets. So, when you can go all into something, meaning it doesn't feel really crappy, you can go all, like playing with your kids, taking your kids sledding, taking up paddle boarding or kayaking or whatever. When it feels fun, you can go all in. Hey, Angie, you can go all in and it feels good, right? So you can get a really good workout in, but it doesn't feel like quite as difficult, quite as challenging and stuff. You have to be excited about what you're doing, I guess, is what it comes down to. You have to be able to know that the outcome is getting you something. And sometimes that something, it isn't enough necessarily just to say my goal is 20 pounds from now, right? You need a better reason. It has to be a better reason. And the only way and I know I talk about self-love all the time, but if you care about yourself, this all becomes so much easier. And I know we all think we care about ourselves. Like my whole life, I thought that I cared about myself. I thought that I was doing all of these things in my life because I was on the right track and all of this stuff. But I mean, really love yourself. I mean, really like dig deep and, love yourself to the point that you want to be healthy, not just thin. It's not an external thing, it's an internal thing. It just like monetary possessions and whatever else, they're not going to fill you up, right? Losing weight is the same way. You can lose weight and you can lose weight. It's not necessarily going to make you happy, I promise. I got to the point where I finally lost my weight, and then I didn't want attention from anybody anymore because I felt like anybody who now was noticing my weight loss didn't see me before, anyway, it's all mindset. This is all mindset. And this is exactly why I'm doing this 23-day mindset for weight loss program. Starts the 25th. And I'm only charging $1 per day. So I thought about doing this for free as another free challenge. But people don't commit when they're free. And I just know that that's the truth. By day 3, people fall off. And it's only $23. I think that anybody who needs this, I think $23 is, you can come up with that, right? So I just really want everybody to have an idea about what I'm talking about when I'm talking about mindset. It's not just all from when we were kids. It's also we're continually conditioning ourselves to look at our nutrition and our physiques and everything we're doing this still. And so we have to stop the cycle and really look at what we're doing in order to fix it. So, all right. So I will drop a link below for anybody who's going to sign up for that 23-day program. You can do that. And we already have a group going where there's free coaching going on inside the group. So join as soon as you can. And then if you have any questions or just curious about how we're doing journal prompts every day in there to get our minds sort of thinking about these issues. So journal prompts and affirmations Monday through Friday in there, and then multiple video coaching every week. So I'm putting a lot of my time into this program. Even though it's only a $23 program, this isn't the last time I'm running. I'm actually using this program continually through 2018. So this is the first run of the program, but it's going to be fantastic because I'm pumping a whole bunch of information into it. So, all right. So if you have any questions, comment below or send me a message. I'll talk to you guys later. Have an awesome rest of your day.